in this season of my life, I have been meditating on one of the most lit story in the Bible. Um, I didn't choose this story because Isaac is on this call, but this is the season where God is leading me into something, some tough decisions of my life. And I think we all know the story where Abraham takes Isaac on the mountain and God shows up to take over. I'm just going to read a passage from the Bible. It's Genesis chapter 22. We all know the story, but I'm just want to run through the text, and I'll share what the Lord spoke to me through this. Sometime later, God tested Abraham. He said to him, "Abraham, here I am," he replied. Then God said, "Take your son, your only son, whom you love." Wow. There is a sermon out there in just those 4 words. "Take your son, your only son, whom you love, Isaac, and go to the region of Moriah. Sacrifice him there as a burnt offering on the mountain, and I will show you." Early next morning, Abraham got up and loaded his donkey. He took with him 2 of his servants and his son Isaac. When he had cut enough wood for the burnt offering, he set out to the place God had told him about. On the 3rd day, Abraham looked up and saw the place in distance. He said to his servants, "Stay here with donkey while I and the boy go over there. We will worship and then we will come back." I just want to take a break here and just let this text soak into my spirit right now, because I think we need to progress into that time where our relationship with the Lord is, it says in Psalms 23 verse 5 that my cup overflows with anointing. And this is the right platform to talk about that cup, because we all have experienced that place where we have to overflow so that we flow into somebody else's life. We have to overflow into the schools and colleges with the anointing and the love we carry for Jesus, because if we are not passionate, the school is not going to even look at us. So but there's this beautiful thing I loved in this text. Abraham says to his servants, "Stay here with the donkey while I and the boy go over there. We will worship, then we will come back to you." One of the learnings in this text, God spoke to me that a son's journey begins when a servant's journey stops. I am not surprised. In fact, if I look at the text this way, that this is not the first time God is speaking to Abraham like this. And I can totally understand Isaac right now, because Isaac has heard Abraham talking to God and the other way around. So it's not difficult for Isaac to understand that, okay, God is saying that we need to go and worship on the mountain. I don't know what's the plan going to be, but let's just follow the Father. Because see, Isaac saw a lifestyle of Abraham with God. Isaac had a reference point that, my father talks to God, and that's my reference point, because if God talks to Abraham, he's going to talk to me also. And Isaac is growing in that understanding that this is my father and that's the God. And if he says my father obeys anytime and every time. I love the confidence Abraham has in God. And I just want to mention on the topic of sonship right now. Like I said, a son's journey begins when a servant's journey stops. Sometimes in the process of serving the God, we choose to be servants all the time. Yes, we have to be servant-hearted, but sometimes servants don't get access to places where sons get access to. In Job chapter 1, it says there was a meeting of angels and Lucifer walks in. Okay, some people are like, dude, he's going to talk about Lucifer. But no, I just want to tell you that Lucifer was also a son. Lucifer was a son before entire fall happened. But there was a meeting of angels. Just imagine this picture, that your father runs the company and he is in the most important meeting in his office, and a servant is knocking the door and saying, can I come in? And the father says, no, you can't. But there's a son who walks, just pushes the door, runs to his father, sits on his lap, pulls his beard. And guess what the father is going to do? The father is going to talk to the son first. Not because he's disturbing, but because he has a relationship. And there are some places in our lives where servants are not allowed. There are some places of our worship where servants are not allowed. That's why Abraham is like, servants, you wait here to a distance. You can see where I'm going, but you cannot come there because there is something between me and God on that mountain. And that just blew my mind. So let's just read ahead. There is God just opened something really amazing for me in this text. Abraham took the wood for the burnt offering and placed it on his son Isaac, and he himself carried the fire and knife. Also, as the two of them went on the mountain, Isaac spoke up and said to his father Abraham, "Yes, my son." Abraham replied, "The fire and the wood are here, but where is the lamb for the burnt offering?" Wow. It's very obvious for Isaac to ask questions because they are climbing a mountain without a sacrifice in their hand. And it's crazy sometimes how we are climbing mountains with zero hope of what's going to happen on top of that mountain. I know you've been there in that situation where you've been just climbing. And it's crazy how Abraham, he's just imagine, put yourself in the feet of Abraham right now, and I would have cried when I would have carried my son. I don't have a son, I'm not married yet, but yeah, I would have cried when I had the most precious thing in my hand, and because I have a relationship with God, I have to sacrifice that. I'm carrying my only son, Isaac, and all the time we've heard about the story in my Sunday school. We've always looked at it this way, that Isaac has always been shown like a small boy in the picture Bible. But I was just doing some research on the story, and apparently Isaac was a teenager, approximately, I think very close to the age of 30. Okay. It would have been easier if Isaac was a kid. Abraham was 100 and whatever, 30, and it would have been easier for that entire wrestling match. On that note, if there was a wrestling match, it would have been definitely noted in the Bible that they fought on top of the mountain and Abraham won. But you know what? Isaac has observed something in Abraham, that Isaac was ready to take the altar for his father. I just want to speak this prophetically over somebody, that it's time to fix our lifestyle with Jesus. Because don't wait till Isaac shows up and he starts learning from your lifestyle. You fix it much before Isaac is going to come into the picture. All the Abrahams in the house, including me, we need to fix our lifestyle, our relationship with God before Isaac shows up. Because the moment Isaac shows up in the picture, he's going to start learning from what I share with God. My cup is going to overflow into Isaac's life. My cup of anointing. So I need to choose that my cup is not just filled, it is overflowing. If I don't overflow, his cup doesn't even get filled. So Isaac and Abraham on the mountain. The beauty is, Isaac submits to what the father has spoken to Abraham. He lies on the altar. I just want to take you ahead in this life of Abraham, that if you observe, when Isaac had to pass the blessing, he had to wake his friends, his sons. When Isaac blessed Esau and Jacob, he had to tell them, you know what, I'm carrying something on my life and I need to pass on. Sometimes most of our sons and in fact including us, we are so spiritually sleeping that we we need a reminder from God that, you know what, I'm carrying something and I need to pass on. And that's what Jacob did as well. Jacob also passed on the blessing to his 12 sons. He had to remind them, you know what, I need to bless you. So make something that I can bless you. But this didn't happen with Isaac. I don't see anywhere in the Bible where it says Abraham said to Isaac that I need to bless you. And I was asking God, why? Why didn't this pattern also apply for Isaac? And God opened it up for me that when Isaac chose to obey what Father had spoken to Abraham, and when he submitted to that altar, he received everything what Abraham had on his life. When we submit to the altar of God, we are automatically eligible for everything that Abraham had on his life. And now he had become that cup which was overflowing. And that just carried on. And I was asking God, you are such a gracious God. You just know it right. And you know, when Isaac asked Abraham, where is the sacrifice? And Abraham says, God will provide. I want to speak that prophetically over somebody on this call, that you might not know where's the provision coming from, but God is going to provide. That's something that I've been learning in this season of my life, that I'm just believing. I am choosing to climb that mountain with my flesh, with my spirit in my hands, and I am choosing to believe that God is going to provide. So, like this lineage I was talking about, Isaac, Jacob had to bless their sons, but Abraham and Isaac were blessed by God from the right source. That brings me to the second point, because I was observing this. I was reading about rams the other day, and I learned that rams don't really climb up mountains. When Isaac and Abraham were climbing that road of obedience on that mountain, there was a ram climbing up from the other side of the mountain. And that just blew my mind. I said, God, is that you? God was preparing a provision. So the ram was climbing on the other side, and it meets them on the mountain where Abraham and Isaac's faith is tested. I was blown away. I was listening to a preacher the other day, and that preacher said that, Sam, if you really want to test God, get into trouble. But God doesn't say that, get into trouble, but try that. Sometimes you say, God, I don't know if you're with me. I don't see hope. I don't see anything around me. And the moment you get into trouble, you just see those hands coming and lifting you up. That's the beauty of my God. Isaac submitted to that altar, and he received everything that his papa had. He received everything. He didn't need words from Abraham. He needed to hear directly from God. And everything, I'm telling you, Isaac was digging wells. Later ahead in the Bible, I get to read that Jesus was thirsty. The Samaritan, she gives him a drink. And it says in the Bible that well was dug by Isaac. So everything that you do when you receive from the right source leaves a legacy, because you're making room for somebody. You're making room for a Jesus through what that you do. If Isaac would have chosen, if Abraham and Isaac would have chosen, yaar, aaj nahi jate yaar, chhod, God, I don't think so, God. The weather is not right. I don't think so, God. Mera gaadi kharab ho gaya. God, I'm not feeling well. Isaac was old enough to start a 3-day journey with Dad, and intellectual enough to just walk. Like that song says, कुछ नहीं चाहिए प्रभु, कुछ भी नहीं चाहिए फिलहाल. I have my Father with me, and I'm confident in my Father that He has heard from the Lord. Can we lift our hands? If God has to move in my city, God is going to use these hands. Because last time I checked in the Bible, his hands were nailed, which means he definitely needs hands to bless people. He definitely needs hands to heal people. He definitely needs hands to impact in that city. And now it makes more sense why he calls me his temple, because he wants to choose this temple to so that the light inside will shine. Like, you all are jewels in, it says in 1 Peter, right? We are his royal priesthood, his chosen vessel, his chosen generation. And it's so amazing to do life with each one of you, man. It is. I'm just so grateful for LiveJam for every opportunity.